Hi students, as I could not come live today, so I made a video for you all. Okay, so now till um till my last video, we had discussed that the people now the world basically the world was asking for Indian indigo. Okay, not indigo, Indian indigo. Okay, because Indian indigo was very bright. It was a brilliant color. Okay, so here if you see, yeah, here if you see about the Indian indigo, it was very bright and it had a wonderful color. The color was very bright. Whereas if you see about the color that was produced in Britain or Europe, they had a plant called woad, which produced a dull pale color. Okay, so this was the reason why there was a demand for Indian indigo. Now, as I told you, as the demand increased, there was an increase in the demand of this thing. Yeah, there was an increase in the demand of the indigo production. Then what happened? Udal, as there was an increase in the demand of indigo, now almost the whole world was dependent on India. So now, as area in India was less, the people started new methods of indigo cultivation. Okay, so if you look over here, from the last decades of the 18th century, indigo cultivation in Bengal expanded rapidly and Bengal indigo came to dominate the world market. In 1788, only about 30% of indigo was exported to Britain was from India. But by 1810, the proportion has gone up to 95%. So, if you look about 1788, the percentage of indigo that went to, the Britain was only about 30%. But during 1810, by 1810, then this percentage rose up to 95%. Okay, now what used to happen? As indigo trade grew, commercial agents and officials of the company began investing on indigo production. Over years, many company officials took the jobs. Yeah, so this would only happen. So, as indigo trade, so these all people began investing in indigo production. Over years, many company officials left their jobs, businesses, attracted by the high profits. Numerous Scotchmen and Englishmen came to India and became the planters. Okay, so basically, they became planters in India and they started planting indigo. Those who had no money to produce land could get loans from the company and banks. And how? Okay, so this is how the trade. So now, how was indigo cultivated? Basically, there were two basic methods of the indigo cultivation. Okay, two basic methods. Number one was the Nij cultivation, and number two was the Ryotwari system. I think so. Yeah, the Ryotwari settlement. Okay, two main systems, the Nij and the Ryoti, as I told you. Okay, within the system of the Nij cultivation, the planter produced indigo in the lands directly he controlled. He either bought the land he rented or zamindars and produced it by indigo. Okay, so if you had the Nij cultivation, then in the Nij cultivation, basically the planter used to produce indigo on his own land. Okay, but there were some problems, like planters found it difficult to expand areas under cultivation. Indigo could only be cultivated on land that was fertile, and these all were densely populated. Number one problem. Number two, only small plots were scattered could be required. Planters need large areas and compact blocks to cultivate indigo plantations. Okay, now, then there was a labor problem, nor there was sufficient labor for the production. A large plantation required a vast number of hands to operate, and labor was precisely needed when peasants were busy with the rice cultivation. The main problem was that when indigo was being cultivated, At the same time, rice was also being cultivated. So all the laborers, all the the peasants, they all were just they all were busy in the rice cultivation. So it was also a great problem. It was done on a large scale, so it required many plows and blocks. One bigha, what's bigha? Bigha is a unit of measurement of land. Okay, it's a local unit. It's a local unit of measurement, not a standard. Or indigo cultivation required 2 plows. This meant that the planters with 1000 bighas would need 2000 plows. Okay, so investing on the purchase and maintenance of plows was a big problem. Okay, so these were some problems which were faced by the people of the Nij cultivations. Okay, so this was a niche cultivation. So now till the late 19th centuries, planters were reluctant. What's reluctant? Reluctant means not willing. So the planters were not willing to expand the area under niche cultivation. Okay, so what they used was the Riyoti system of indigo cultivation. The Riyotwari. So under the Riyoti system, the planters forced the Riyot to sign a contract. Okay, so number one, under the Riyoti system, the planters or the Riyots, these were the Riyots or the planters, these were first of all forced to sign a contract. Contract was also known as the Satta at that time. Okay, so they needed to sign a contract. At times, they were pressurized, the village headmen, to sign the contract on behalf of the Riyots. Those who signed the contract got cash advances from the planters at low rates of interest to produce indigo. Okay, so but the loan committed Riyot to cultivate indigo at least 25% of the area on its holding. The planter provided seeds, drill, and soil, and looked after the crop. And once the crop was prepared, was delivered to the planter after the harvest, a new loan was derived to Riyot, and this cycle of loans started all over again. So now see what happened. There was a cycle of loans. A cycle of loans. Very important. This will come in your papers for 5 or 3 marks. So understand this topic very carefully. There was a cycle of loans that was going off. What? So basically, the cycle of loans occurred under the Riyoti system of the cultivation. Okay, this is Riyoti system of cultivation, not the Riyotwari settlement. Please do not get confused. I'll clear the confusion later on. Okay, so now what happened was, what happened? So what happened was there was a cycle of loans. Initially, what happened was that a peasant or a youth, he was given some amount of, first of all, they were forced to sign a contract. Wait, let me show you the cycle of loans on a clean page. Okay, so over here, let me write cycle of loans. So, number one, they were pressurized to sign a contract. Once they signed a contract, they were given money, they were given advances. What advances? They were given the cash advances, which at low rates. Means they were given very low prices for the work they did. Then after they got money, then what happened? They got advances. Now what after that happened was that they did the work, they did the cultivation, okay, and once this cultivation was done, they were given new loans, and they had to begin all over again. So can you see this cycle of loans? Okay, first they signed the contract, they got cashes. So in the greediness of getting cash, they did the work, they get very low cash, very very low. Okay, and when they did the work, They were given, again, new law. Law, I'm saying. They were given new cash advances. And once they were given, they again have to sign the contract and this. And it was, you won't believe, it was very, very bad. It was very bad that these people used to work several hours. They worked so hard. They worked so hard, so hard for this thing. But still, they did not got enough money that they usually should get. This was the cycle of loans. How bad, right? And also, one major problem that occurred during this time was that when, if you have a fertile soil, once you cultivate, now at that time people were cultivating rice, we know that. Now when they were cultivating rice, they were pressurized because of the high demands that they have to cultivate indigo. So once they cultivate indigo on their lands, their soil could get exhausted. Okay, so here planters insisted indigo to be cultivated because peasants preferred to cultivate rice. Indigo, moreover, had deep roots and exhausted the soil rapidly. After finding harvest, land could not be sown with rice. Yeah, so it was a great loss that once if they cultivate this indigo, they won't be able to cultivate rice, and that is why they insisted to grow this indigo. Yeah, but still they were pressurized by the Britishers to grow, so they had to grow. What can we do in this case now? Let's move on. The Blue Rebellion and after. Now, as I told you about the cycle of loans, okay, that how hard they worked, but the money they got was, very disappointing, very, very less money actually. So in March 1859, after the revolt of 1857, an amazing volt, I would say, thousands of ryots in Bengal refused to grow indigo. The rebellion spread. Ryots refused to pay the rents to planters and attacked the indigo factories, and attacked with swords and these all things. Swords, spears, bows, arrows. Women turned up to fight with pots, pans, kitchen implements. Those who work for planters socially boycotted, and the gomastas, the agents of planters, came to collect, were beaten up. Ryots swore that they would no longer take advances to grow indigo bullied by planters. So why did indigo peasants decide that they would no longer be silent? What gave him the power? Clearly, indigo system was intensely oppressive. But those who oppressed not all rise in rebellion. They only do sometimes. Okay. So as I told you, this was just because of the cycle of loans. They swore that they would not take loans anymore. In 1857, the indigo ryots felt that they should have the support of local zamindars and the village headmen in their rebellion against planter. In many villages, headmen who had been forced to sign contracts mobilized the indigo peasants and fought pitched battles. So they were fighting battles against these things. Yeah. Then zamindars went. Zamindars went around villages urging ryots to resist planters. These zamindars were unhappy with increasing powers planters. Okay. Then what happened? There was an introduction to the Indigo Commission. Indigo peasants all imagined that the government would support them, and this happened. So the lieutenant governor toured the region in the winter of 1859. Ryots saw the tour as a sign of government sympathy for their plight. When in Barsat, the Barasat, the magistrate Ashley Eden issued a notice stating that the ryots would not be compelled to accept the indigo contracts. Word went that Queen Victoria had declared that indigo should not be. Yeah, so now, let's focus from here. So, worried by the rebellion, so now there was a Blue Rebellion. What was that? A Blue Rebellion. Since when was this Blue Rebellion? Let's see. Just a minute. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay, so from 1859, this rebellion started. When? 1859. The rebellion started. Why this rebellion started? Due to the cycle of loans. Okay. Yeah, they were given new loans at very low prices, and they were pressurized to work against their will. Worried by the rebellions, the government bought the military to protect planters. Okay, so planters were protected. I mean, the Britishers, now they were protected because the people, the riots, were very very now harsh. They were beating them up, and set up an Indigo Commission. What did they set up? They set up a Indigo Commission. All right, so there was an Indigo Commission that was set up to inquire into the system. So they inquired, the government inquired that what's going on. They inquired, and after the time, the commission held the planters guilty. Who are the planters over here? Please stay focused. Planters over here are the company, the Britishers, while the cultivators or the riot are the people, the cultivators, the poor, the peasant. Okay, so they held the company as guilty, and they criticized them for the coercive methods they were using against with the indigo cultivators. It declared that indigo production was not profitable for riots. Okay, and they asked the riots to fulfill the existing contract but not to produce any indigo in future. They should not sign any contract of these people in future. Yeah, after the revolt, the indigo production collapsed in Bengal, but planters now shifted their operation in Bihar. With the discovery of synthetic dyes, their business was severely affected. They managed to expand when Mahatma Gandhi returned from South Africa. A peasant from Bihar persuaded to visit the Champaran and see the plight of indigo. Mahatma Gandhi visited in Bihar in 1917 and marked the beginning of the Champaran movement against indigo planters. So there was a movement, Champaran movement, which was against the indigo planters in Bihar. A Champaran movement which occurred in 1917 was against the indigo the planters, the company in Bihar. Okay. Hence we complete the chapter. Let's discuss the questions. So question number 1, fill in the blanks. Growers of woad in Europe saw Indian indigo, which indigo? The Indian indigo, which would provide, then you have demand for indigo late increased because of, why? Because of the high quality, right? Because of the high quality of the Indian indigo, because Indian indigo was so good. The international demand of indigo was affected by the discovery of, by whose discovery was this affected? By Britons, right? The Champaran movement was against whom? The indigo planters. Yeah, let's discuss. Describe the main features of the permanent settlement. Okay, you have that all people were recognized as talukdars. Then the money they had to collect was fixed. Yeah, that is not that the money can't be, the revenue can't it can't be more, nor can it be less. Yeah. Then, so you can explain the whole permanent settlement. When was that introduced? That all. Yeah. So, how was the Mehelwari system different from permanent settlement? As I told you, the main difference, I'm telling you, you know all the differences I discussed in my previous lectures. So, in the Mehelwari settlement, what the major thing was that the revenues there was revised periodically. Give 2 problems that arose with the Munro system of revenue. Yeah, you know that. Yeah. So, basically they had tied a problem with the cultivators itself, and they said that we will give you money only if the soil is fertile. Yeah. Why were youths not reluctant to grow indigo? Due to the niche cultivations, I told you everything. Why were circumstances which led to indigo production? The cycle of loans. Yes. If you haven't, okay, so the chapter is finished now. No more to study. Okay. Now, see, if you have any doubt, just I said you that I always share a link of my website in my description box. If you have any doubt, just email to me. I have my website. Click over there. You'll get a button to contact me. Over there, you'll get my email, and then you can mail your question to me. I'm always available. You can ask me your questions, and I'll clear it out. So I got a source of connecting to you. If you have any doubts, go to my website, ask over there. You have an option over there, contact me. Click over there, you get my email ID. You mail your doubts to me. I'll reply to you as soon as possible. Thank you, and stay tuned with me.